You're watching unseen tapes, where the shadows hold secrets, and every story comes from a place better left forgotten. Tonight's tale is one buried in snow, silence, and screams. A tale whispered among locals in a tiny northern town, and retold only when the wind howls just right. This is Winter Horror Story. You ever been snowed in so bad, it feels like time's standing still? That kind of cold, the kind that eats through every layer and sits in your bones, changes people. Out in the north, where towns are few and roads are long, winters aren't just cold, they're isolating. That's where this story takes place, deep in northern Ontario, just outside a forgotten logging town called Bright Hollow. Now, I didn't grow up there, but my cousin Mark did. He was born and raised in Bright Hollow, and the last winter he spent there, he didn't talk about it much. Until one night, over too many beers and a fire too low for comfort, he told me what happened. And I've never forgotten. It was the winter of 2013. Bright Hollow had been hit with record snowfall, roads were buried, electricity was failing in waves, and the woods were darker than usual. Mark was working part-time doing maintenance at an old lodge-turned-seasonal retreat. The place was closed to guests for the season, but the owners wanted the pipes checked and the snow cleared from the roof after every storm. The lodge sat at the edge of the forest, at the end of a long, narrow road no plow ever touched. It was one of those places built in the early 1900s. Wide porches, creaky floors, too many windows, and that weird smell of cedar and history. Mark would drive up, do a few checks, then leave. But that week, things changed. It started with a phone call from his boss. "Hey Mark, the backup generator keeps cutting out. We're worried about the water pipes freezing. Can you stay overnight this weekend and monitor things?" He wasn't thrilled, but they offered extra pay and a stocked fridge. So on Friday afternoon, he packed up, said goodbye to his girlfriend Jess, and drove his truck out to the lodge. He made it there just as the sun was setting, casting long blue shadows across the snow. He parked, unloaded, and stepped inside. The place felt colder than it should have. Even with the fireplace lit and the generator running, it was like the building refused to hold warmth. He chalked it up to age, checked the pipes, turned on the faucets, and settled in. That night, the wind howled. But that wasn't the only thing he heard. Somewhere around 2 a.m., Mark was woken up by a knocking sound. Not at the door. No. It was coming from inside the walls. He froze, listening. 3 knocks. Then silence. Then 3 more, slower, measured. He got up, walked the hallway, flashlight in hand. Nothing. The heater clicked on. The pipes groaned. He was about to head back when he passed the lodge's old trophy case, and saw something strange in the reflection. Someone, standing at the end of the hall. He spun around. Empty. But in that second, he caught something, a faint imprint in the thick frost on the wooden floor. Like bare feet, wet and dripping. The next morning, Mark checked the security cameras. Static. The storm had knocked out the signal again. He shook it off. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe the heater made the pipes knock. Maybe he was just on edge. He made himself coffee. Looked outside. That's when he noticed the tracks. Leading from the tree lean to the porch. Bare feet. Human-sized. But wrong. The toes were too long. The arch too deep. And they stopped right at the door. No return prints. Nothing but white snow beyond. Mark searched the perimeter. Nothing. No animals. No sign of people. He grabbed a shovel and erased the prints, told himself he'd just deal with it. That night, it got worse. Much worse. He was in the kitchen heating up canned soup when he heard the whispering. Not in his head. In the room. It came from the hallway behind him. "Let me in. Let me in." Soft. Childlike. Mark turned, heart racing. He walked the hallway, calling out. "Hello? Who's there?" No answer. But the whispering returned. This time, directly behind him. He turned so fast he slipped on the floor. Flashlight beam darting. Nothing. Just the darkness pressing in. And then, The fire in the lodge's main hearth went out. Just, poof, gone. He didn't sleep that night. Just sat in the chair by the front window, watching the woods. The next day, Mark tried to leave. But the truck wouldn't start. Battery dead. Frozen stiff. He called his boss. No signal. Tried the lodge phone. Dead line. The generator kicked off again. And he felt it, this heavy weight, like the house itself was holding its breath. He remembered something then. A story he'd heard from Old Man Becker, the last caretaker before him. A drunk with too many stories. Becker had said the lodge was built on something wrong. That before the trees were cleared, that patch of land was considered cursed. Even the First Nations people avoided it. They said the forest took people. Mark always thought it was BS. But not now. That night, the thing came inside. He heard the door creak open, even though it was locked. Footsteps on the hardwood. Dripping wet. Slow. Deliberate. He hid in the supply closet, heart pounding, eyes wide. Through the slats, he saw it pass. It wasn't a person. It wasn't an animal. It was tall, gray-skinned, stretched. Its limbs were too long. Its face, blurred, like heat on pavement. And its mouth never moved. But Mark heard it, inside his head. You let me in. You called me. You are mine now. He stayed in that closet until dawn. When he emerged, the tracks were gone. The fire was back on. And the front door, shut and locked. He fixed the truck battery using an emergency charger. Packed his things and didn't look back. When he got back to town, he didn't talk about it. Not for years. He quit that job. Moved south. Started fresh. But he never forgot what he saw. And sometimes, when the snow piles high and the wind howls just right, he swears he still hears that voice, whispering just outside the window. Let me in. Let me in. Some lodges sit empty because they're out of season. Others, because something still lives in them. Watching. Waiting. Whispering. If you like this story, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were Mark? You've been watching Unseen Tapes, where every story leaves a trace. If you know where to look.